Parshas Pinchas. This week's Parsha includes a description of the census that Moshe and Elazar took of the children of Israel before they entered the Promised Land. And the Torah, after concluding the census, all the tribes except for Levi were counted in one census, and then Levi was counted separately with different criteria. And then the Torah says, Ela, in summarizing, it says, Ela Pekudei Moshe Elazar HaKohen. These are the countings, or the reckonings, of Moshe and Elazar, the Kohen, the priest. Aaron had already passed away, who numbered the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho. That's Asher Pakduas Bnei Israel Barvos Moab Ben Yericho. So this is the counting immediately preceding the entry into the land of Israel, although that doesn't happen until the very end of the Torah, actually at the beginning of Sefer Yoshua, the book of Joshua. But this is the count before they go in. And then the Torah contrasts this census with the census that Moshe and Aharon, Moses and Aaron, conducted earlier, following the commentaries say following the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf. So this is now verse Samach Daled, Pasuk Samach Daled. It's Chaf Vav Samach Daled, which is 66, verse 66. Uve'ele lo haya ish mipudei Moshe. And in this count, there was no man who survived, who was in the original census of Moshe and Aaron, HaKohen, Asher Paktuas Bnei Israel B'Midbar Sinai, when they counted the children of Israel in the desert. That was, as we said, the commentaries say that's following the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf. The next verse, this is now 65, Samachay, Ki Amar Hashem Lahem, because Hashem had said to them, Mos Yamusu Bamidbar, they will die in the desert. Well, when did he say that? He said that following the Chet HaMeraglim, the sin of the spies, where the children of Israel rejected the promised land, and instead they chose to pay heed to the majority report among the spies who said that the land may be flowing with milk and honey, but it's a land that will consume its inhabitants. It does consume its inhabitants. And therefore, we're not going. And they were punished for that. And one of the punishments was that no man who rejected the land of Israel by following the spies would survive, which is why the only two survivors were Ki'im, it says, Velono Sarmehem Ish, and not a single man survived, Ki'im Kalev ben Yefunev Yoshua ben Nun, except for Kalev and Yeshua, because they did champion the cause of going to Israel. Now, in both verses, the Torah uses the term Ish, and I translated it deliberately as man. Sometimes it means person. Sometimes it means specifically a person of the male sex. So here, which one does it mean? So we rely on Rashi. And Rashi comments here. He says, Uve'ele lo haya ish, and there was no man. Aval al hanoshim. But with the women, lo nigzara gezeras hamaraglim. They were not included in the decree that followed the disaster of the spies, which means that they were not condemned to die in the desert. Why? Lefi shahayu mechavavos es haaretz, because they held the land of Israel dear. Ha'anashim omrim, the men said, as following the episode of the spies, Nitna rosh v'nashuva mitzrayma. Let's put our heads together and let's go back to Egypt. We don't want to go to Israel. And what did the women say? And this immediately follows with the passage of the daughters of Tzlachad, Benos Tzlachad. V'anoshim omros tenu lanu nachala. Please give us a portion. This is talking about where the inheritance of the land generally passed to the males in a family, but where there were no male descendants, only female descendants. So through the intervention of the Benos Tzlachad, the daughters of Tzlachad, who appealed to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Moses, and they said, why should we and our families miss out on the Nachla just because there are no males in the family? And Moshe consults the Almighty, and the Almighty says, Cain, Benos Tzlachad Dovros, that Benos Tzlachad are correct. So their appeal was successful. Lakach nismacha Parshas Benos Tzlachad Lakan. And that's actually why the passage that describes this appeal of the daughters of Tzlachad follows immediately this counting to contrast. So we see here that Ish is specifically, is dafka, males. Lo nosar mimenu Ish. And so the commentaries say, well, can't it just mean no persons were among, in this counting, were among those that were in the earlier counting, some 39 or 38 years ago? And the commentaries explain that when the Torah wants to exclude any item from the total set, it says, Lo nishar echad. Not one. Not one was remaining. We see that in Shemos, in Exodus Ches Chav Zayin, that's 8:27, where the Torah says specifically about Ara, which is the wild beasts, said they were all removed, Lo nishar echad. Not one remained. So the Torah here could have said that, quoting the verse, if it wanted to refer to anybody who was included in the count, who was alive at the time, it would have just said no one survived, but it didn't say no one. It uses specifically the term ish, which sometimes can refer to just any human being, but here the Meforshim explain, and there are other cases where lo nishar b'hem ad echad, and that's about that's in Shmos Yud Daled Chav Ches, which is 14:28, where it talks about there wasn't a single warrior of the Egyptians who was left alive. Lo nishar b'hem ad echad. It doesn't say ish. So the rabbis deduce that ish here is dafka, means specifically male, not female. What's the story between male and female? What's going on? So there is, although individuals do vary, and some people can have attributes going one way and attributes going another way, but the general understanding of the Torah is that there is a difference in orientation, in makeup, in attitude, and perspective between male and female. My Rabbi, Rav Ahron Soloveichik, explained it as being that the male has the predisposition towards kibush, towards conquest, towards perhaps confrontation, mixing it up, not necessarily conquest of other people, but conquest generally. And that's kibush. Whereas the female tends to have the attribute of chazaka, of rachamim. We say chazaka is slow, organic growth, building, developing, nurturing. We say that nashim rachmanios hein, that women are by nature compassionate, in comparison certainly to men's default nature. So there are distinctions. I'm mindful that many modern psychologists take issue with this distinction. I'm representing the Torah value here. And Rav Ahron Soloveichik points out to a number of factors that indicate a distinction in the spiritual tendencies of men and women. First of all, he points to the fact that the order of creation is from something that's less refined to more refined. The culmination of creation is man. The culmination of creation of man is woman. Woman is the last thing created. And the blessing that is unique to women that men do not say is in the morning. One of the orienting brachos that we say every morning on waking up is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'asani kirtzano. Blessed are you, O God, King of the universe, who made me according to His will. And Rabbi Soloveichik suggests that the reason for this bracha is that women by nature are closer to fulfilling the will of the Almighty, of their Creator, because they are compassionate. We know the descriptions of God is Mahu Rachum, Af Atah Rachum. Just as He is compassionate, so should you be compassionate. And the predisposition of males is to be less compassionate than the predisposition of females. So the distinction leads to a spiritual result. And we see this, first of all, the Chazal say, the rabbis say, that it was in the merit of the women that all of the children of Israel were redeemed from Egypt. Why? The men's spirit were broken, but the women always had the long game in mind, and they were able to sustain, to encourage, to support, to nurture the men so that they wouldn't be broken by the physical labor. We also know that the women did not participate in the sin of the Chet HaEgel, of the golden calf. They were reluctant to contribute any of their jewelry for the Egel, for the molten calf. It was removed from them by force. But the women did not participate. They were enamored of the land of Israel and of the opportunities, the spiritual opportunities, we presume, that the land presented, as opposed to the men who said, no, too much going on, too much effort, too much change, we're going back. There's the Gemara in, I believe it's Masechtas Niddah, talks about the Bina Yasera, the extra understanding that a woman has. We're not talking about superiority or inferiority. We're talking about different predispositions. And this is why Rabbi Soloveichik suggests that men are obligated in more mitzvos than women are, specifically concerning mitzvos aseh she'azman grama, affirmative commands that are time-bound. In other words, man has potentially an excessive tendency towards kibush, conquest, troublemaking. And so their natures must be regulated more than those of women. And the end result is that we need both kibush and chazaka. We need both male and female. And each brings something distinct to the package. And the distinct attribute of women is in their bina yasera, with their, let's call it women's intuition, their ability to see things that men cannot. They have a spiritual connection to a stronger spiritual connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Almighty. And as a result of that spiritual awareness and spiritual connection and spiritual perception, they are less resistant to the call of change and getting things done in the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. As a result, the women were not included in the gezerah, the decree of that the males were subject to, which is that the entire generation of the midbar, of the desert, would have to be wiped out before they went into Israel. And the women were not, because there was nothing that had to be corrected in their spiritual attitudes. Have a good Shabbos.